Strange Days takes place in the year 2000, the new millennium, and I feel in shooting it, it just looks like a state of emergency. You know, there are armed guards, police on the streets, total riot gear, and that's day to day. There's nothing special as it would be today, you know, as we've seen maybe in Los Angeles during the riots or whatever, and when there was the curfew, et cetera, going on. This is the day-to-day business as usual.
Describe in single words only the good things that come into your mind. About your mother?
My mother?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about my mother.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Have you ever been in an institution? Cells. Do they keep you in a cell? Cells. When you're not performing your duties, do they keep you in a little box? Cells.
This causes it. This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves.
You are listening to the High Tech Low Life podcast, a cyberpunk media retrospective. High Tech Low Life contains themes and language not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the third episode of High Tech Low Life podcast with your host Eric and Josh.
I'm Josh, and I guess he's Eric.
Sorry. This new way we're doing the intro throws me every time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's Eric after that.
I am Eric, and he is Josh. I forgot that I have to introduce myself.
Yeah.
Could start over. I could just delete all this, and we could do it again.
I suppose you could.
Let's not, though. This is fun. We've gotten past the first two episodes where we're trying to be professional and have them be super evergreen so that anybody checking out the show for the first time can enjoy them. And now we're into the third episode where we can, be ourselves.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And ourselves is bad podcasters.
I mean, we're all right at best.
So as you heard at the top with our little cold open, we are doing the movie Strange Days this week. 1995 Kathryn Bigelow joint.
Correct.
We recently watched this and released our live commentary track on Patreon, so feel free to subscribe if you think that's worth the money. Eventually there'll be other things there too. Hopefully eventually it will be worth some money. We'll see. It's up to you. No big deal if you don't want to. This is a low pressure sales pitch.
Yeah, we are, even though both of our dads made the majority of their living selling things.
Yeah.
I don't think we inherited those genes very strongly.
No, not at all. Although my dad has admitted several times he hated that aspect of his job.
Yeah, mine too.
But, yeah, I hate self-promotion with a passion, but I've been trying to do a little bit of it because I want people to hear our show. It's not for the Patreon dollars. Those are just extra to help us keep doing the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, help us keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And like I said over text, like a week or so ago, like it'd be really cool if we could get enough just to pay for hosting, and then like maybe every couple of months to pay for a lunch.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Lunch on the list.
Maybe help us generate some new tent.
Yeah, buy a DVD.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be cool.
We might need to do that in the future. Should we save what we're doing next week for the end, or do it now? Let's save it for the end.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of excited about it because we just decided on it, and should be fun.
Mere moments ago.
In the meantime, though, we've got Strange Days. We're going to get into that pretty deep, I think. It was not what I was expecting when we picked it for our second property to do. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't know. On the one hand, as I said while we were watching the movie, I think I remembered pretty much everything that went into it.
Mm-hmm.
I do not, like, I remembered the plot pretty solidly.
Yeah.
I do not remember it feeling quite so fucking visceral and upsetting.
Yeah, and I wanted to do this up top, so I don't have to edit one in, but just give a content warning. It's going to be unavoidable to talk about stuff like sexual assault and police violence, and especially relating it to modern times, given what has happened just a few days before we started recording this. So if you don't want to hear about that, maybe this episode's not for you, because this one seemed very apropos, and the way it was shot and done was very visceral.
Yeah, we, and, you can obviously continue listening to the episode until we start talking about the movie in depth.
Yeah, listen to our
We're going to have some more, we're going to have some more before that, but...
And we'll try to keep the triggery bits contained and not pepper them out, keep them all to one little section.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we talk about, you want to talk about anything else? We're about 2 weeks behind the release of this, but there's one thing I wanted to plug, because when this comes out, it will be kicking off. So, and it's apropos to what we do here. So if you guys are Titterpig fans, tabletop role-playing game fans, you might be familiar with a publishing company called Cynomine, which does Stars Without Number and Worlds Without Numbers and some other games. I think right now their Kickstarter for their cyberpunk version, Cities Without Number, should be live. I believe it's supposed to happen on February 2nd.
Okay.
So, if you are interested in a new cyberpunk property from a publisher that seems like a pretty decent guy, maybe go search for Kevin Crawford or Cynomine on Kickstarter and pledge him a few bucks, because I'm excited for the game.
Yeah, I imagine. Given I haven't looked at it at all, but given how, I don't know, given the quality of Stars Without Number, I imagine it'll probably be a good game.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with the property, their games are fairly simple and easy to learn, but they're good about providing a lot of really robust tools for the game master to build really cool, interesting worlds. So I am very excited to sit down and build some cyberpunk cities using the tools that they provide in this book. It's going to be pretty neat stuff. So yeah, give it a look if that's your bag.
And on that note, I would like to plug a podcast that Eric and I both listen to, and we've mentioned on previous podcasts, Astronomica, which is a Stars Without Number actual play podcast, which I really enjoy. Like, they've got a good cast of characters, and politically, pretty much everybody's heart's in the right place. So that's cool.
Yeah, and this is coming from a guy who doesn't like podcasts about role-playing games.
Yeah, generally.
But I do like podcasts about role-playing games and also enjoy Astronomica. So, yeah. Anything. Those two do relate closely because they play Stars Without Number. Did you say that?
Yep.
Okay, well, whatever. I'm bad at plugging things.
Yeah, we've discussed that before.
Yeah, even stuff that's not mine. So, is there anything else we need to cover? I guess it's hard to do current events because we've actually got a little bit of backlog, so we're a little bit behind.
Yeah.
Do we need to cover any current events?
There's some police murders going on, and we're going to undoubtedly get into that in the show.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we don't worry about that right now.
Okay.
I've got a recommendo.
All right, cool. Let's hit me.
Good old school recommendo. Poker Face on Peacock.
All right.
Have you seen anything about that?
No.
Okay, it is a mystery show starring Natasha Lyonne, written and directed by Ryan Johnson.
Oh, I actually have seen something about that now that you point that out. I just didn't know the name.
Yeah, it is really, really fucking good. And they released the first 4 episodes this past Thursday or Friday. And then I think the remaining 6 or so will be out week to week.
Okay.
It's really kind of nice and a good, like the way over the past 15 years-ish that every TV show has to have big through running plots that just like, it seems like every TV show that's on HBO or high profile ones on networks, they feel like they have to just have a single continuous story as opposed to like being able to describe an episode as something.
Yeah.
This is like, it's really modeled after like the Columbo movies where it's basically a case of the week. And this week, the main character is at a barbecue restaurant, and that's what the mystery is. It's really refreshing to not have to keep a shitload of continuity in your brain for it.
All right.
And it's really funny and entertaining, and I'm kind of all in on Natasha Lyonne's shit.
Kind of like a House MD situation.
Yeah. I think it's better.
Well, yeah.
Than House.
I mean, as far as you were describing the episodic nature of it.
Yeah, it's kind of a procedural in that way. And yeah, it's really, really good. And I actually had somebody tell me, day before yesterday, maybe, when I recommended the show to them, like, oh yeah, you're a lot like Natasha Lyonne. Basically saying I'm a Natasha Lyonne character, which I took as very flattering.
Okay. That's your right to take it that way.
Yeah.
Your voice sounds exactly like hers.
That's true. Gravelly, sexy.
Yeah, something like that. I've not...
My hair isn't as big as hers, so...
That's true, but it kind of used to be. You gotta admit.
Once upon a time.
We had some pictures at one point. I don't have Peacock, but that would be a fun one to watch because I need a new show because I finished mine.
I would say, if you run across one of those free 90-day trial or 30-day trial thing, give it a couple of weeks and, sign up and just see how it goes.
Cool. I can do a quick recommendo before we dive into the meat as well.
Please do.
It's similar to yours in that it has kind of a mystery feel. It is dissimilar in that it is very much all one connected story. And it is called, Bad Sisters on Apple TV.
We have not watched that yet, but I think Melissa and I are interested in starting it because we like Sharon Horgan.
Sharon Horgan is very great. It's also got Bono's daughter. And the whole cast I really liked. It's a bunch of Irish people.
Yeah.
It's it's just a fun murder. I mean, it starts with the murder and then you kind of jump back and forth in time figuring out how it happened, and it's kind of fun to try to suss out how the murder happens, and it's a mystery show.
Yeah.
But it's got fun characters that are interesting to follow along with, and it's very Irish, which is nice.
Very Irish.
It's a nice place over there. Although the main character drives around an Audi convertible, and I gotta say, if I lived anywhere in Ireland, I'm not purchasing a convertible.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the place for that.
She's got the top down all the time, and I'm thinking, you're doing that like once or twice a year max.
Wild. That's like somebody in Maine.
Exactly.
With a convertible.
But I'm sure Audi paid them lots of money, so good for them.
That's probably true.
All right.
Okay. Well, do we want to jump into Strange Jaws?
Let's jump into it. I'll play the bumper right now. I don't have a bumper.
Okay.
I forgot to prepare one.
All right.
How do we start?
If you want, I can just go through the plot of the movie real quick.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good way to lay the groundwork.
That's what we did last time. Once again, our first two episodes were about a book. This is about a movie that's almost took me as long to watch as the audiobook of Neuromancer, because it's a long-ass movie.
It is a surprisingly long movie. We were both shocked at how long it was. Okay, Strange Days, 1995 film. Okay, the movie is set in 1999. Main character is a guy named Lenny Nero, a dude who looks like he naps under a slice of a Sbarro pizza.
I saw that in many reviews, people talking about how they could smell Lenny throughout the sour BO smell just emanating off of him.
Yeah, played by Ralph Fiennes, who looks like, in this movie, very much like if Bradley Cooper just wiped himself with Sbarro's pizza.
Yeah.
It's pretty gross.
And awesome.
Yeah. So, he is what amounts to a cyberpunk version of a drug dealer, except it's not drugs. It is a really common motif in cyberpunk that, bigger than drugs is living people's memories and experiences. In the William Gibson novels, they're called SimStim.
Brain Dance and Cyberpunk video game.
Yeah, what's the Shadowrun
SimSense
one? SimSense,
and
yes.
better BTL, Better Than Life, SimSense.
Yeah, BTL. I remember that acronym.
Yep.
So he is a dealer for bootleg sensations, formerly a cop, and he gets drawn into a conspiracy because of a girl who, to some degree, I don't know, he's her pimp?
Yeah, I think
to some extent.
I think he not necessarily her pimp, but like her producer. Like I was getting that she was an actor in some of these. Yeah. These what are they called in the show?
I've lost
squid.
It again. The rig is a squid. They keep referring to him as Clips.
Okay. Well, yeah, she's one of his actors in the Clips is what I got from it. I don't think it's ever explicitly stated.
Yeah, that's definitely the implication, though.
He spends a lot of time around attractive, down on their luck women, though, so kind of pimpish.
Yeah. He really does act. Even if he's not actually a pimp, he acts like a pimp.
Dresses like one too. Yes.
Also true. And so he gets drawn into this big conspiracy because of both his friend Iris and his ex-girlfriend Faith. The conspiracy, and clearly spoilers.
Yes. Obviously, every episode of our show.
Yeah. Clearly spoilers. Iris was wired to record this SimSense stuff, and she witnesses a police execution of an extremely socially important rapper, and then goes on the run because, number one, they're going to try to kill her, and two, she has the tape. And this reaches up through the music business and into the LAPD, and, also it's New Year's Eve.
1999, yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of an overview, but it really happens when Iris is killed. That's when Lenny really gets not roped in. He gets kind of obsessed about figuring out what's happening.
Yes. No, most of this movie wouldn't have happened if Lenny wasn't too interested in things for his own good, which,
absolutely,
I mean, is kind of one of the rules of detective fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So Iris gets killed. The clip of whatever she wanted to tell him disappears. He ends up receiving a clip of someone killing Iris in a gross rape, sex murder way. And it's really, really upsettingly fucking visceral.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that more once I'm done with the plot. So he tries to track down the killer, which he at various points thinks the LAPD is hiding, and then suspects it's his ex-girlfriend Faith's new boyfriend, who is a extremely cool club owner / music manager.
I think
played by Michael Wincott.
It's also important to point out that he's obsessed with his ex-girlfriend. He spends much of his free time watching these reliving clips of him when he was still with his girlfriend. He stalks her, frankly. Goes to her.
Yeah, he really does.
She's a musician. He goes to her shows and goes backstage. He's not welcome. Yeah, that's an important part of the plot as well.
Yeah, it's very much a Jimmy Stewart in the middle third of Vertigo.
Yes.
Move.
I know exactly what you mean.
Have you not seen Vertigo?
I think I did, but I don't remember. I get the Hitchcock movies all mixed up. Didn't one have birds in it?
Yes, one had birds on it. I can't remember the title, though, now that I'm trying
There's no way to know.
It's impossible. Oh, and maybe the most important thing about Lenny is his... he's got two friends. Well, three friends, I guess. One is played by Tom Sizemore, who is at his absolute Tom Sizemorest.
Yes. Peak Sizemore.
Yeah, it really is kind of peak Tom Sizemore. Then there's a guy named Tick, played by character actor Richard Edson, who's one of the drivers, or one of the valets in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He plays Sonny Bono if he was a porno dealer. Or porno producer.
I was going to say, he's more of a producer, right? Like, he kind of puts the clips together and...
He's kind of the tech guy.
Yeah.
And then the coolest character in the movie, and maybe any movie, character named Mace, played by Angela Bassett.
Yeah, it's easy. Like, Lenny's the main character, but Mace is the heart of the movie for sure.
Yeah, she's literally the only person in the movie with a moral compass.
Mm-hmm.
She's also
the only, like, competent person in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else is doing deeply dumb shit for often psychotic reasons. And she is highly competent and just kicks ass. I mean, step on my neck, Angela Bassett, 1995.
Her day job is kind of like a high-profile limo driver / bodyguard, I feel like.
Yeah. She's driving an extremely cool Chrysler Concorde limo.
Yeah.
It looked really sweet in 1995.
Yeah,
that's the important
thing. It looked badass.
Because, cars in the future, etc.
Yeah, this an aside, but I read... In fact, I've got the IMDb trivia list, which has a lot of interesting gems on it. One of them was that Mercedes lent, like, their prototype Mercedes 6 Series. No, that's BMW. I don't know how Mercedes car names work. But anyway, a prototype
I think
car.
It was an SL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lent it to be Lenny's main car, which gets impounded. That was kind of neat.
Yeah. Which is interesting. Like, I didn't mark the car as anything special.
No.
When we were watching it the other day.
I marked it as a Mercedes because I thought that was...
Yeah.
Like, he must be doing pretty well to drive one.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't mark it as anything special because that became, like, one of the best-selling like, you saw those all over the place from 1997 through, 2008.
True, yeah. Continue.
But it probably made more, it made more of an impact at the time, I'm sure. So where was I? So Lenny figures out by implication, he thinks that Faith's new boyfriend, Philo Gans, played by the incredible Michael Wincott, is somehow behind the murder of Iris, and partially the movie seems really dense and confusing because he follows a whole bunch of paths that don't end up meaning anything. They're just, false leads.
Yeah. I mean, Lenny doesn't really uncover anything. Like, it's all kind of given to him. He's looking, he's desperate, but the killer tells Lenny what's happening at the end.
Yeah, he keeps thinking he's moving forward and like making progress in solving this case, and he's really not.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is dropped into his fucking lap.
Or into his sunroof window.
Yeah. And also one thing I will note is I watched it again after we watched it, and you can if you watch it a second time in close viewing, it is clear from like effectively minute, whenever we first see the tape of Iris's rape murder, you very clearly hear Tom Sizemore on the tape say shit.
Really?
Like it's clearly Tom Sizemore's voice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it turns out his buddy Max, Tom Sizemore, killed Iris. He's basically just a scumbag, ex-cop PI who's trying to get one over on everybody and make a few bucks.
He's also banging Faith behind Philo and Lenny's back.
Correct. Yeah, he's been hired. Philo has gotten paranoid and is having everybody recorded and watched all the time, which is why Iris was wearing the squid rig for the date with Jericho 1, the extremely famous rapper. And he had Max follow Faith, and they began an affair because Faith is scumbag. I mean,
yeah, she's
it's
just
really
kind of a bad person.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about this movie is how it inverts the way things usually go. Like, typically, if the main character of a movie is obsessed with, the ex-girlfriend that got away and left him because, he's a fuck-up or whatever, that character is good and aspirational. Like, it's somebody, yes, he should be back with her. You're supposed to feel the way that the main character does about her, but literally everything in this movie is just telling us that Faith is a real piece of shit.
Yeah, toxic and bad for Lenny.
Yeah,
and
she is a bad person.
And Mace frequently points that out to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Turns out she was behind some of the, she was behind a bunch of the bad shit too. So that's cool.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, Philo, I mean, he was kind of a scumbag, but he wasn't, was he involved with the killing?
No.
Was he involved with Jericho? Like, he was Jericho's producer.
His sin, as far as the movie's concerned, is that he was trying to hide, like, he was trying to conceal, I guess, the tape of Jericho's killing.
Yeah.
And try not to have the city explode.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, he's like, yeah, the guy's clearly a piece of shit club owner, music manager. I mean, those two things just indicate somebody's a piece of shit.
Yeah. But he's not the big bad guy.
No, he's just like,
so
like, really, his motivation is, I don't want the city to catch fire.
You don't have
because of my rapper friend.
You may not yet have a Natasha Lyonne voice, but you're pretty close to having a what's that actor's name again?
Michael Wincott.
You're pretty close to having a Michael Wincott voice.
Yeah, he's pretty great.
Let's talk about the actual bad guys of the movie, because you got Tom Sizemore's character, which is what's his name? Max, who is most of the movie thought to be Lenny's best friend and ex-partner. And then also two characters we haven't mentioned yet, which are the two cops that slay Jericho 1 and chase Iris through the streets.
The inciting incident bad guys.
Yes, played by Vincent D'Onofrio and
William Fichtner.
Yeah. You always remember those character actors' names. I can never recall.
Well, that's what made me fucking run the board at ITI in the movie game.
To be clear, we used to work as telemarketers, and they would play games while you were making calls to keep you from killing yourselves on the job.
It worked some of the time.
Yes, some of the games would keep you from killing yourself. Sometimes you would just sit there and write the entire lyrics to Pink Floyd's The Wall on sticky notes and stick them around your cubicle.
Because they gave you free sticky notes.
It was soul-crushing, and why I'm always nice to telemarketers to this day, even though I hate them.
Absolutely.
Anyway, besides that digression, that's basically the movie. Except for the end of the movie. Okay, so the movie finishes after we find out that Tom Sizemore killed Iris. Why did he kill Iris? What was his motivation for killing her?
Because he thought if he got a hold of the tape, he could make more money out of it.
Right. Just normal scumbag shit. And then we find out that he's banging Faith as he shows Lenny a clip of him having sex with Faith in what appears to be non-consensual, but ends up being consensual because Faith's kind of a freak.
Yeah.
No kink shaming.
Yeah, it turns out that his, private kink also carries over to murder. So that's not great.
But then they kill Philo, I guess for fun, because Max can get away with it being a cop.
Because Philo walked in on them fucking.
Right.
And then they decide to give him a poach job.
Oh, right.
Which they fry his brain, so it doesn't get investigated as a murder.
Yeah.
And then he comes up with the bright idea of setting it up so it appears that Lenny killed Philo.
And then himself.
Yeah.
Now, while all this is going on, Mace has a copy of the Jericho 1 killing, and she takes it to the police commissioner, the supposedly only good cop on the LAPD, Squeaky Clean.
Yeah.
This is where we enter the realm of fantasy.
We'll meet some good cops at the very end of the movie.
Yeah. But anyway, when she gives it to the guy, he basically shrugs her off, mainly because she approaches him at a urinal in a men's room, which might not have been the best option for her.
Yeah. I can see where her head was at.
Yeah. She gives him the tape. Then she goes out into the streets, which are exploding in a giant rave for the year 2000 that's upcoming.
Yes.
Where she is met by the two cops who are trying to kill Iris in the beginning, and then they start trying to track her down. Am I skipping stuff? I'm not as good at recapping as you. I don't know why I took over.
I think you're honestly doing fine. This movie is kind of dense. Like, you can lay out the entire plot in about 2 sentences, but because everybody keeps running down these, like, false starts, it seems way more dense than it is. I think you're doing fine.
And that's part of what surprised me about it, because I remember, and then when we kind of decided on it for our second thing, I remember it being more like a Johnny Mnemonic and not quite as heavy and complex as it ended up being. And
yeah,
I don't know where I don't know if it was just the time and place that I watched it and absorbed it, and I missed all the heavy stuff and just focused on the squids and the
cool shit,
the bullshit, and the scumbag Lenny and the bad suits, and forgot that there's like important societal messages trying to be conveyed.
Well, I think one important thing about that is that we aren't used to movies that present themselves as like big sci-fi thriller blockbusters doing that.
Right.
I mean, this is very clearly a fucking message movie.
Yeah.
But it is very cleverly packaged.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a really cool magic trick how they do that.
It's absolutely a response to the Rodney King riots of 93. They started making this movie just like a year and a half after that happened.
Yeah.
And that's clearly what inspired it. So I guess that being said, have we finished the recap? Should we go into... I mean, the movie ends with Mace nearly being killed by these two cops, and then the police commissioner showing up, revealing that he watched the tape, and then to arrest those guys, and then they basically... One of them kills himself, the other...
One of them turns himself into a good cop, and the other is turned into a good cop by Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill?
Yeah, Mark Hamill was one of the, SWAT guys.
Are you serious?
Yeah!
Did you learn that after the fact? Because I don't remember you pointing that out when we were watching it.
I did. Yeah, I saw something about it on the IMDb trivia, and then as I was watching the movie the second time, spotted him.
Mark Hamill's an OG fascist killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, the news gets out there, and back in the 90s, we thought exposing evil was enough to end evil. We've since learned that exposing evil just causes half of the population to say that evil is not actually evil, and the other half to wring their hands a lot and then go back to brunch.
Yeah. It's
good. We love it.
It was a really good movie. There is a lot of shit to love about this movie. It's very well made. We picked up. We were going for something lighter.
Yeah, we were. So let's get into that, because it is a good movie, but it did not perform well.
No, it was a huge box office bomb.
Yeah, from what I was reading, it had oh man, I had it pulled up and I've lost it. It had a budget of 42 million,
I think,
and made just under 8 in theaters.
Yeah, did not do well. I was one of the people who saw it in the theater.
Yeah, I saw it on DVD personally.
But yeah, it did not work. I think probably there was a lot of confusion as to how to market it.
Absolutely. I've heard that marketing was terrible for it. It's just strange. All these cyberpunky movies were coming out in 1995 and nobody was watching them. And I don't know what was going on in the minds of movie studios back then, because Johnny Mnemonic came out that same year. It was also a failure. Now, granted, Johnny Mnemonic had its faults as a film, and this movie has faults, but it's not. No offense to our beloved Johnny Mnemonic, but this is a class above as far as
I
filmmaking.
love Johnny Mnemonic, but it has a lot more problems than Strange Days does, just on, in terms of the movie you watch.
Right, but I think it actually did better in the theaters than Strange Days did.
I believe it did. I don't have those numbers clearly right now, but also some of that probably has to do with the fact that Johnny Mnemonic came out in the first week of June, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's true.
And this was the second week of October, which at least at the time is a fucking dumping ground.
Yeah. Let's also mention that this film was originally conceived by the James Cameron, Mr. Avatar himself.
Yes, the Avatard, James Cameron. The taller than average James Cameron.
Mr. Deep Seaman, James Cameron. He wrote it back in the mid-'80s, from what I can see, and then just kind of shelved it until Kathryn Bigelow picked it up to direct it.
Yes, I think kind of the parts that he wrote were focused on the sort of aftermarket emotion stuff.
Yes.
That's what I read. And then Kathryn Bigelow, his wife at the time, and then ex-wife by the time they entered actual production. She's the one who added the police violence and riots and stuff like that.
From what I read or heard in interviews, he wanted to focus more on like the romances between Mace and Lenny and Faith, and she wanted more edginess and violence, which is kind of cool. This would have been a very different film if he directed it, I have a feeling. Yeah. Everybody would have been blue and swimming in the fucking ocean. It probably would have been 3D.
Fucking Tails or something? I don't know. I haven't seen that movie yet.
I haven't either. I watched the first one. That was enough Avatar in my life, I think.
I don't know. I feel like Melissa the other day suggested maybe we should see all the Best Picture nominees. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to have to go see Avatar 2 if you want to do that.
Yep.
She was out.
It's just not. It just doesn't look interesting to me. Maybe
there's apparently some level of disconnect for me with those movies. Like, I know people and know of people who really like the first one, and I actually rewatched the first one. I don't know, probably 2 months ago, maybe. Mm-hmm. Because I was thinking, Avatar 2 was coming up, and I kept thinking, maybe there's something I missed the first time. And there isn't. It's it's well made. It's just not very interesting.
James Cameron knows how to make movies. I'm sure, like it.
Yeah, it's super competent. Like, nothing is wrong with it on any sort of level, except just like, okay, I finished the movie and I was like, yeah, okay, there was some kind of neat stuff, but it doesn't make me really like it or want to go see another one.
It's like if you told me there was a restaurant that served a really good plate of spaghetti, but it took 3 hours and it cost 20 or 50 bucks. I guess food at restaurants isn't a good comparison anymore, but it cost a lot of money. And it'd be like, I'm sure I would enjoy that plate of spaghetti, but at the end of the day, I make a pretty good spaghetti at home and don't really need to go spend an entire evening eating fucking spaghetti. So I just don't know if I need to eat the blue fish spaghetti.
Yeah, that seems right.
All right. Anyway, enough about him. I believe this movie is as good as it is because of Kathryn Bigelow. I think the choices she made were awesome. I read a big thing everybody points out is how the first person shots, she had to like develop. Well, I'm sure she didn't do it all on her own, but they had to develop a new camera rig to shoot those because that wasn't something that was shot back then, which is incredible because it's every cheap ass fucking horror movie I see on Shudder is a first person found footage movie, and I hate it. But this was new and exciting tech.
Yeah, they, if I remember right, they basically stripped everything off of an Aeroflex camera and got it down to the shockingly low weight of 8 pounds. Out of, like, I think normally an Aeroflex is somewhere in the range of, like, 40.
Yeah.
But it could still, like, I don't know, there's a lot of camera shit that I don't think you or the audience or even me is terribly interested in. It could still take the good lenses, and that's how they shot it. And then I don't know what, Ali was 2002? Something like that, where Michael Mann was shooting with tiny digital cameras, and it looks 1,000,000 times worse than this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
So they had a full-size film camera stripped down to 8 pounds that they could do, say, the opening POV shot where the guys rob the Chinese restaurant and fail to make a jump.
Yeah. It's nauseating if that type of thing nauseates you, which it does me. I was having a hard time on some of those scenes when Josh and I did our rewatch. But
that was maybe the thing I didn't remember. I think maybe that was the main thing I didn't remember about the movie. I didn't remember as much. I didn't really remember the whole very much POV, super subjective shots.
Right.
Like, I kind of remember that it occurred on an intellectual level, but not in a... I mean, it's... Boy.
It's an important part of the film. I mean, some of the... Well, for one thing, they throw you into it with this pretty brutal robbery of a Chinese restaurant where they're throwing people around and you're just like... Not such a big deal now. I play so many violent video games that are in first person. I watch so many violent horror movies that are in first person. But in 1995, to be in the POV of people doing horrific acts like this would have been a thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. Yeah, I was there. I watched it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was, and that's probably, like, the reason I didn't remember that very well is probably because it's just become so goddamn common over the past 25 years.
Yeah, it really has. What was that Hardcore Henry, where the whole movie was first person?
Yeah.
Not going to be watching that. But just goes to show that it's true. I think this is as good a point as any to talk about the scene of Iris's murder, because I have a quote from Kathryn Bigelow about it that I wanted to read. This is
great. Please do.
This is the trigger warning portion, although this quote isn't particularly triggering. But, you know, if you don't want to hear about it, the scene is a graphical rape and murder of a young girl, and it's brutal to watch. As when we watched it on our rewatch, we were drinking and having fun, and then because I inserted the trigger warning in it, and I was listening to us, we're like just laughing and telling some jokes. And I'm like, oh wait, things are about to get bad.
Oh no!
And then we got real quiet, and awkward for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I
bet. You can hear that on the Patreon. Anyway, so Kathryn Bigelow, this is an interview, an excerpt from Film Comment, September 95. Yeah, Kathryn Bigelow interviewed. Okay. She says, one difference that's very interesting is the difference between objective and subjective violence, which, by the nature of the point of view technology, puts the viewer into a very unusual position as culpable for the first time. And it's not consensual. Or maybe it is because you bought the ticket. And why'd you buy the ticket? The reason the clip of the murder of Iris is so disturbing is that it's so unflinching. There's a kind of purity about it. It's not sensationalized. There's no seductive lighting. It's just flat, cold, harsh bathroom light. There are no interesting angles. It's all dictated by the medium and the apparatus. Which is true. I was looking for more like reasons why she included it, because the murder is important to the plot of the story. The rape, in my opinion, isn't. It's just showing that Max is a ginormous piece of shit. But it's pretty clear that Kathryn Bigelow wanted to force the audience to see it.
Yeah, I think unflinching is maybe the best descriptor, or one of the best descriptors to put on that section of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, like, as horrible as it fucking is, and, like, you get, like, oh, you know, within, I don't know, by the time it hits second 30 or something of that scene, you're absolutely locked in. You know, oh no, this shit is going to be very fucking bad. But at the same point, or at the same time, you can't look away. I mean...
Another interesting fact is, although these first-person acts of violence have become pretty commonplace, I would say that depictions like this have become less common, especially sexual assault. Mm-hmm. It's not used as often anymore in storytelling. As a tool for just to show how bad a person is.
That is absolutely true.
And I think that's a good thing for sure.
Yeah, don't disagree with that at all.
But it made me think of a podcast that we both listened to. I'm not going to say their name just because of the context of this conversation, but they were talking about a character from our favorite show, Dawson's Creek, CJ, who takes advantage of a girl kind of early on in the season while she's drunk, and then they try to rehabilitate him as the season goes on. But you can't rehabilitate someone who's done that.
No. I don't know, should I drop in my season 6 catchphrase into this.
I think we've dropped the R word enough at this point.
Blank is a blank.
Yeah. And it's true. Like, it was just used to show how bad people were, which is, I think, kind of a flippant use of something that's so common and B, so horrible.
Yeah, sexual violence is a lot less common in media than it used to be. So that's good.
Yeah. And it's the same amount of common in real life, and that's bad.
Yeah.
I don't know what else two dudes can say about it, but
yeah, we're running up into that. We're running up against that wall again, like where we're both straight middle-aged white guys.
Yeah.
And like all we can say is, "Hey, good job," or "Sorry that happened to you."
Yeah.
I mean,
but
from
a filmmaking aspect, it got a response, and I guess
it is effective.
I guess that's what her goal was, and it feels probably even more effective now than it was when I first watched it in '95, because that stuff was so much more common.
Yeah, and also, I don't know, again, at the time we were, 16, 17, so effectively sociopaths.
Yeah.
I mean,
true.
Not to be glib about it, but a 16 or a 17-year-old dude is just usually a sociopath.
Yeah, can't, at least in our experience, at least in the 90s, I can't really argue.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, that's
hoping they're better these days.
Were. Oh yeah, it seems like they are, honestly, with my experience with the kids.
That's good.
Yeah.
So pressing onward and upward past that unpleasantness.
Yes. Let's talk a little bit about the production.
Okay.
Angela Bassett was apparently the first choice by Kathryn Bigelow to play Mace, which makes sense when you consider that immediately before she had played Tina Turner in What's Love Got to Do with It, to critical aplomb.
Yeah.
And in parts of this movie, she kind of feels like she's still in that movie. I'm referring specifically to the flashback to where she first meets Lenny, and she's wearing a 1950s waitress outfit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Which still existed in the 90s.
It did,
but weren't tremendously common. And then later, towards the end of the movie, when she's all glammed up to go to the end of the world party, and has the little revolver strapped to her thigh. That's very much a Tina Turner dress, and I don't know if she could have pulled that off had she not immediately beforehand been Tina Turner.
Yeah. Probably when she finished production on that movie, she was like, finally I can eat a donut and stop lifting weights every day. And then Kathryn Bigelow came around and said, hold up, not yet.
Hold up, I want you to look like you can whip anybody's ass.
Because you're going to be whipping everybody's ass.
Absolutely. Let's see. So she was the first, and as far as I'm guessing, the only choice for Mace. There were a number of actors kind of in the hopper for Lenny.
I saw that as well.
Including Bruce Willis.
Pass Bruce Willis.
Yeah. Let's see, who else? God damn it, I had this.
Andy Garcia.
Somewhere. Oh, Andy Garcia was the one who was almost it, which
that would have worked.
I could totally see Andy Garcia making this work. I mean,
yeah,
coming off of 2 years after Godfather 3, where he's just kind of a scumbag.
I think that would have been good. I don't think it would have been as good as Ralph Fiennes. I think Ralph Fiennes is, maybe because I liked the movie for so long, he's just always been. In fact, it's hard for me to see Ralph Fiennes as anything other than Lenny.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
That's interesting, because this is, and I haven't looked at his filmography, but off the top of my head, this is a real outlier in his filmography.
Absolutely. Didn't he do The English Patient before it or after it? I don't remember.
English Patient would have been, I think, the year after?
Yeah.
96? Yeah. Like, okay, so looking on the Googles.
His character in Bruges is kind of Lenny adjacent.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Wow. His, the movies under the site, when you just Google Rafe Fiennes, okay, The Menu is the first one that appears. Makes sense. It's very recent.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Getting a lot of press. Number 2, Schindler's List.
Yeah. Oh, he just come off of Schindler's List, I think, before this movie.
Yeah, apparently he signed for this movie right before, like a few days before the Academy Award nominations came out. So he probably, had he waited a few days, he could have got
a lot more
an
money.
extra several $100,000.
Yeah.
Then The English Patient, followed by The King's Man, which was a movie, Grand Budapest Hotel, Made in Manhattan, and Red Dragon.
Yeah, he's done some films.
Whoa, hey, would you like to hear his full name?
Sure.
Ralph Nathaniel Twistleton Wycombe Fine.
That's a British man.
It certainly is.
British as it gets. Twickleton?
Twistleton? Yes.
He should have just gone with that. Like, just Twistleton, fine. Oh, man. And then Tom Sizemore, 90s darling.
Yeah, he was...
Fun.
Dude was in a bunch of really great movies.
Fun/really gross fact that I learned is that he and Juliette Lewis were dating during the filming of this, which, given their age gap, is pretty nasty. And just the fact that he's like a real-life Lenny without the lovableness.
Yeah, I didn't know they were dating during this, but boy, that tracks based on what I know of Juliette Lewis during the 1990s and what I know of Tom Sizemore from the 1990s to today.
Yeah. My least favorite casting was Tom Sizemore and Juliette Lewis. I've got no problem with Juliette Lewis. I just feel like, I don't know, in her early career, I didn't feel like she quite had line delivery down very well. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I don't know. I honestly like that casting for both of them because they're both playing pieces of shit, and regardless of how true it actually was, at the time they were both clearly pieces of shit. Like they weren't casting those characters. They were just like, oh yeah, we'll call Juliette Lewis something else, and we'll call Tom Sizemore something that isn't Tom. Whatever.
Max. Stick with the 3 letters. Well, Juliette Lewis did all the singing for the singing parts, and I think she's a pretty good singer.
She's not bad. I remember her songs on the soundtrack being okay.
Yeah. So and she looked the part, like in the beginning when she's all clean cut.
Mm-hmm.
And then she transitions to like this rocker girl. Like, she definitely looks the part. I don't know. It's just the way she talks. Maybe it's just her normal ass voice, and it's just something I don't like. But
yeah,
I wish somebody else had played Faith. I'm sorry.
Trying to think of. Okay, so Winona Ryder was roughly that age, I think, at the time.
Yeah, I think Winona Ryder could have done it pretty well.
That would have been very interesting, because I'm trying to think of Winona Ryder playing a complete piece of shit like Faith.
Yeah.
And I am not coming up with it. That would have been interesting against type casting.
I mean, yeah, she's always kind of lovable, but I don't know. I think that would have made the character even more compelling, because you're like, everything in your mind is saying, I'm supposed to like this character. Why do I not like her?
Yeah, okay. I can totally see that.
But
that's a good.
Anyway, I don't want to.
Yeah, I'd enjoy to see that movie.
I don't want to shade Juliette Lewis. She's fine. She's a staple of the 90s.
She certainly is.
Anything else? Any other cast you want to talk about? D'Onofrio.
Oh, D'Onofrio
doing the absolute best under the eyebrow stare that Hollywood money can buy.
Yeah, I mean, that's him.
He's the master.
And It as you'll hear on our Patreon, if you sign up for that and listen to the commentary track, you'll hear me an hour into the movie or something go, oh, that's fucking D'Onofrio.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know. I honestly don't know how many movies he'd been in at this point. But he was on, like, his fourth look. Like, just D'Onofrio is a guy who has looked about 10 different fucking ways in his career. And none of them have seemed, like, wildly unnatural. He's just a dude who, several times, like, he puts on 5 pounds and he looks like a completely different fucking guy, except for the eyes.
Yeah, and then he takes it off and changes again.
Yeah, it's very impressive. Dude's a fucking chameleon for the fact that I think he's like 6'3" or something. And
I enjoyed him as the worst of the two bad cops. He had very T2 vibes. Like, part of me wonders if Cameron saw his performance and was like, made Robert Patrick watch this before he did Terminator 2.
I think Terminator 2 was before this.
Was it? Why do I think Terminator 2 is the end of the 90s? You're right, it's the end of the 80s.
Yeah, T2 is like 92, I think.
Maybe he made D'Onofrio watch T2 then.
Terminator 2, 91.
Yeah, for some reason that was, yeah. My bad. Cut this, editor.
Cut this.
That's gonna stay.
Yeah, he was, he seriously, I noted in both the commentary and when I was watching the second time after the fact, like, he seriously, in the last 3 minutes of the movie, it turns into like a horror movie.
Yeah.
And he's like fucking Michael Myers or Jason or, something like that. Just looks like a demon out of hell who cannot be stopped.
Yeah, his final scene is him covered in blood from his partner just blowing his brains out all over him, dragging his dead partner behind him as he crawls...
Whom he is handcuffed
Who's handcuffed to, as he crawls towards Mace with his gun out, looking under his eyebrows, grinning wickedly, about to blow Mace away. It's good.
Yeah, it's like... It's seriously a thing you look at and go, ugh, that is fucking terrible.
Any other casting commentary?
I think Michael Wincott is great casting. I mean, like, he seems like that dude to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind
or
of...
at least in the 90s, he seemed like that dude.
I mean, he played the same character in The Crow. We talked about that before. It's
yeah.
basically the exact same fucking guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great, and I'm always happy to see him, and, like, he had a really good... Oh, and this was also... 1995 was, like, the year William Fichtner became a weird fixture? Fixture?
Fixture?
Yeah.
Fichtner's the other bad cop?
Yes. He had apparently been doing a bunch of theater and shit, and somehow in... Like, over the course of 1994 and 1993, he filmed about 8 movies in really small parts like this, where, he probably worked on this movie a week, maybe. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly, over the course of, like, 6 months in 1995, was in, like, 6 of the best movies of the year, just in small parts.
Yeah. I liked his character. Sorry, go ahead.
And then he's been a fixture ever since.
Yeah, he has. I didn't know his name, but recognized his face immediately. I was going to say I liked his character because he's not... Like, those two cops are individual characters. You can tell. He's not as into it all as Vincent D'Onofrio is. He's just kind of being dragged along by D'Onofrio's personality, and it kind of lends credence to the whole ACAB situation, because if you're not actively stopping the bad cops, you're definitely not a good cop.
Yeah, he is... for the most part, just kind of going along trying to help his partner out.
Right. He's, which is why in the end, he's the one that decides to eat his own gun rather than face the consequences of what he's been up to.
He decides to become a good cop.
Yes, in the end. All right. You want to talk about the soundtrack?
Sure. Let me drop right before / as we're talking about the soundtrack. The giant rave at the end of the movie had such acts as Aphex Twin,
Yeah, this was a real party they threw to film the final scene.
Delight. And it's the smartest thing I've ever heard of in movie production.
How so?
They threw a giant rave and charged people $10 a piece to get in.
Really? They charged?
$10 a piece, they got 10,000 people.
Wow.
10,000 extras and they got 10,000 extras and made $100,000 off of it.
God damn, I didn't read that. So
yes.
Did they
genius?
Did they do any costuming?
Move.
Because there were so many weird people walking through that crowd. Did they say just like wear your rave attire? Man, raves are big.
Yeah, I assume so. And also, I'm sure like the fucking death guy with the baby. I'm sure there was costuming for some of the big ones. Like the mime is credited. I think the guy's name is like 300 or something.
Great. I'm looking here through the film trivia. There's one scene in a club where the band playing is Season to Risk, and they're local boys from Kansas City.
I saw that. That's when they're the ones who were playing when we were talking about cage raves.
Yeah.
Versus cave raves.
Cage raves and cave raves, yes.
This movie has a cage rave.
It does. Most of these types of movies in the 90s did. What else is on this? Let's talk about the actual soundtrack.
In my mind, the most notable things that appear in the movie proper from the soundtrack, Prong and Ray Manzarek covering The Doors' Strange Days,
which is where the film got its title.
Yeah, that pops up, I think, twice during the movie, at separate points. And then showing up in little snippets, like, I don't know, several times, like 4 or 5 times, is the, wow, how did that leave my fucking brain? The Lords of Acid track that they recorded for the soundtrack.
Yeah.
With Jade For You singing something about, it's the turn of the century, 1999, and it sounds like a fucking Lords of Acid song.
Fun band.
Which they really were. I mean, that's a band that, like, about once every 4 years I go, I never think about Lords of Acid. Huh.
Let's go listen to them. Oh yeah, that's 90s music.
It really is. I mean, to some extent, it's kind of like some of the KMFDM stuff where you go, yes, this was absolutely, there are definitely great parts of this. It is so very much tied to that time that I honestly don't know if I can get past that.
Yeah, I know. There's Juliette Lewis covering a couple of PJ Harvey songs, or maybe just one PJ Harvey song.
2. She covers Rid of Me and Hardly Wait.
There's apparently a Leonard Cohen song sung by Kate Gibson.
Yes.
Dance Me to the End of Love is one of my favorite Leonard Cohen songs. I don't know who Kate Gibson is, though.
It doesn't appear for very long in the movie.
Okay.
I think it's maybe in one of Lenny's flashbacks.
Yeah, could be.
There's the great Tricky song Overcome off of the Max and K record, which had come out the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And a band that literally, I think they sold maybe 2 albums in the United States. Skunk Anansie.
Did you buy one of them?
I was one of the possessors of their album Sunburnt and something. I don't know. It was the one that Selling Jesus was on.
Which is the song in this movie. That's played at the rave, right?
Yeah. I think they've got 2 songs in the movie, but that's the one that's on the soundtrack and the one that's mainly featured at the end of the movie. And they're apparently, like, I was surprised to learn this, they're apparently a fairly big band in England and, like, Europe just as a whole, but apparently just one of those ones that does not translate to the United States at all for one reason or another, whether it was marketing or what.
Oh shit, dude, not to interrupt or change the subject, but I was just scrolling through the trivia and I found another person who was up for the lead of Lenny.
Ooh.
John Travolta.
Oh, that's right. She saw, like, Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And
that I have a hard time picturing.
Yeah, I can see where she can get there from seeing Pulp Fiction. On the other hand, I don't think it's a good choice.
No.
Because he would, at best, be playing the same character from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, pretty much. So, there's one thing we haven't really got into that I think is important to cover, and that's the backdrop of the unrest and the racial violence that's happening throughout the entire film.
Yes.
Not an easy thing to talk about because it's very real and very happening in our very world.
Yeah, it's clearly something we have to because it's a major component of the movie.
Also, it's kind of what we're doing here, right? We're talking about dystopias
yeah.
and relating them. So I don't know that I would say it's the main plot of the film. Maybe if James Cameron had been less involved, it would have been more of a forward plot.
Well, I don't know if it would have, because I think in part it works really well the way it actually is structured in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, because we're spending the movie focused on Lenny, who sucks, and he's clearly this character he's an easy movie protagonist,
right,
to some extent. Like, okay, he's obsessed with this woman from his past. This other girl gets murdered. He's going to try and find her killer. He's got this friend who, is a fucking bodyguard, and it's easy. He's a character who can easily move through a bunch of milieus and be like stuck in a plot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a scheming piece of shit with 18 Rolexes.
We never mentioned the Rolexes. Yes.
Fake Rolexes. Rolex as in ECKS.
Yeah, he keeps a briefcase of them to bribe people with.
Yeah. So he's a really easy character, like from a structural standpoint, to have as the center of your movie. You can do whatever around him, and you can make it make sense. It is way harder to make a movie that's just about like systemic and racial injustice.
Yeah.
And have it be a movie. I mean,
right.
And I think it's like, if this movie had been successful, it probably would have been like surprisingly important. But they didn't know how to market it, and you can't. It's a real tough fucking sell in 1995 to say, hey, you remember those riots, or the Rodney King beating a couple of years ago, and then how LA caught fire, and also, the potential for riots when O.J. Simpson, that whole thing. Let's do a cool movie about that.
Yeah.
That's not something that middle America wants to see. So I think it's better that they backdoored it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, probably. How do you feel about the way that they backdoored it? Do you think it definitely didn't feel like it was undersold its importance? Like the movie, after the intro, it like starts off, you're watching a Jericho 1 video, so you can just, they're just showing like this guy is important to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know.
I think they did a really effective job of, okay, so yeah, you see the Jericho 1 video, you hear some news reports, whatever, about, two black males found shot execution style, an unknown female. One of them was Jericho 1, this rapper, like news reports and stuff like that. And Lenny doesn't because of who Lenny is, he doesn't actually give a shit at all about that. It's just going on in the background until he can, like, the only time he seems to care about it at all is when he shows up at Philo's and is like, "Yeah, you're a piece of shit. Your client is dead. Haha, fuck you."
Well, even
you're using his death for marketing. Whatever.
Even more than that, like, it's Mace that makes him care about it. Like he was gonna, I don't remember what he was exactly gonna do with the footage. He wasn't going to take it to the cops. It was finally when he has his crisis of conscience and realizes the right thing to do, he gives the clip to Mace to take to the police commissioner.
Yeah, she says, "But that's the only copy of the tape. Nobody will ever know." And he says, "That's what makes this. That's why it's a makeable deal. I've got the only copy of this."
Right.
So,
and yeah, Mace is really the conscience of the film. Without her, it would have been a disaster.
Yeah. You couldn't have done this movie without Mace, and possibly very specifically without Angela Bassett as Mace.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's another capable actress out there, but Angela Bassett is a queen.
Well, she carries a weight like she's real good, and she was denied an Academy Award 2 years beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah, true. So, what was I going to say? The response to the news getting out that Jericho 1 was executed. I wish it was yesterday. Actually, one of our listeners, one of our patrons, Mike the Sailing Guy, posted a link to an article talking about the optimism of cyberpunk. Mm-hmm. Did you read that article?
I did, yes.
I believe I retweeted it. If not, I should have. But it basically states that, you know, all these cyberpunk films and works are products of their time, and they reflect an optimism of the time that hasn't seen the things we've seen. Because even though Strange Days is a bleak film that shows L.A. in a state of civil unrest and cops murdering black men, they hadn't seen Ferguson, and they hadn't been through the stuff that we have to this point. So they have cause for more optimism than we have. And when you have that in your brain and you're watching these films, it actually makes them more depressing.
Yeah, it's really it's something that's really interesting because I think broadly, cyberpunk as a genre exercise was tremendously cynical compared to most of what had come before it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's not cool, clean spaceships and cities under domes and whatever. It's, you know, it's fucking dirty goddamn alleys with a dome overhead that, you know, the top part of it is really, really cloudy because of all the fucking burning trash fires.
Right.
You know, it is or was very cynical, including some stuff like, you know, the Cold War is maybe not quite still going on in Neuromancer, but there's still clearly blocks of influence.
Yeah.
Where, you know, but at the same time, it's way more hopeful about stuff that at the time I mean, like things that sort of weren't concerns or were relatively minor concerns that would, you know, surely work themselves out in the future.
Yeah, like that ozone. We took care of that. Everything else is going to go like that. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. I mean, you know, hey, in the 1980s, things were way better for black people in the United States than they had been 30 years before.
It's true.
I mean, it, you know, so why wouldn't that progress continue? But turns out things weren't quite so simple.
Yeah, turns out the last 30...
Is that what we're getting at here?
Yeah. The previous 30 years have been spent doing the easy stuff, and the hard stuff is really hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you don't do it, things are going to backslide, as it turns out.
Yeah, and we've spent, off and on, we've spent the past, 8 years now? Living through repeated simstems of the Jericho 1 killing over and over and over again, and things do not seem to improve, because again, it's just over and over and over again.
Yeah, I can't imagine that if someone like Jericho 1 was killed, I don't know who that would be. I don't even want to put a name to it, but if a prominent entertainer, a civil rights person was killed and it was leaked like that, would it have a bigger effect than like George Floyd had in 2020, or would it just be another? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea. I mean, like if Chadwick Boseman had gotten killed by the cops, I don't know. I think that the thing I always equated it to, and I really should have looked this up, was it really seemed like Jericho 1, they were shooting for a sort of Tupac.
Yeah, Tupac died 11 months after this movie came out, is what I read.
Because he was, at the time, a really, fairly political and very influential.
Tupac could have absolutely become a Jericho 1 if he'd have been around longer. I think.
Yeah.
Just interviews and stuff I've heard with him, the world was really robbed of a pretty brilliant dude.
And he was really great in poetic justice.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that cyberpunk?
I'm going to go with no, but, we can probably twist it around.
Right.
We're going to get the Crow in here.
Josh is insisting we're going to cover the Crow on this podcast, and I'm insisting that it does not belong. So when we cover it, because he will get his way, I will protest.
Hey, here's a thing that's just that we've just brought up. What makes this movie cyberpunk?
What makes this movie cyberpunk? It's a good question, because it's not Neuromancer, that's for goddamn sure. It's only barely cyberpunk. I mean, it's not only barely. It's only barely cyber, put it that way.
Yeah.
But I think it absolutely is. There's no arguing that.
I 100% agree. And but boy, it is kind of hard to put your finger on exactly what makes it cyberpunk, other than the fact that you look at it and you go, yeah, that's cyberpunk. Why wouldn't it be?
I mean, it's got the transhumanism sort of living other people's experiences. I mean, there's
okay,
using technology to simulate
changes in society due to rampant use of technology. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely got the dystopia aspect down, because although the LA that's portrayed in the movie is supposed to be dystopia, and it's almost reality these days.
It is reality depending on what month you're in and what city you happen to be in. I mean, it's reality for Atlanta right now.
Right, which is why I chose the clip I did to start the show with.
It is like the things that make this movie cyberpunk are also very much things that are common to completely non-cyberpunk shit. Like, okay, I'm gonna bring it up again because I'm sick.
Okay.
Angela Bassett is, she's the closest thing to Molly Millions we've seen on screen at this point.
Yes, except for maybe Jane from Johnny Mnemonic, but
yeah. But I mean, she's really she is exactly that archetype, 100%.
And I think we're going to find as we go through these that archetype is kind of common.
It is a running theme. I mean, yeah, she's not far off of Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Trinity in the Matrix movies.
Absolutely.
Jet Girl in Tank Girl.
I haven't seen it. Take your word for it.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
She barely appears in that movie. Played by Naomi Watts in one of her first roles.
Even Total Recall has, I believe her name was Melina, who's pretty badass and capable.
Yeah. And we have a complete fucking scumbag male lead.
Yeah, that's pretty cyberpunk.
And they're up against the system somehow. Even though they're only secondarily up against the system as far as the male lead is concerned.
Yeah,
right?
I suppose, but the male lead is an ex-cop who was forced out because of dirty stuff. I don't know. I would say that he's up against it. And then Angela, well, I don't know. They're pretty up against the system.
They are, but it's like, I don't know. I guess it's sort of a secondary concern relative to, like, the primary concerns is initially, okay, Iris is dead and Faith is in danger, are Lenny's primary concerns for most of the movie.
Well, right, but it's the same way with Case and Neuromancer. The primary concerns are, I need to get back online, and this fucking AI needs my help. Because the nature of the scumbag protagonist is that they don't really care about the system. They're just trying to get theirs, right?
Yeah. They can't get, like, the system itself is outside the scale of what the protagonist could potentially even begin to think about doing.
Right. Johnny loves the system. It gets him his room service.
Room service at the Imperial Hotel,
Tokyo. So should we move into rating this film?
Sure.
Okay, because it's kind of like goes with what we've been talking about. So
yeah.
let's do our four average ratings, and then we can give it however many hand raisers we want to at the end. Finger raisers.
Okay, great.
So once again, our four categories are plot, influence, dystopia, prediction / future prediction, and style. So as far as plot, pretty boilerplate. I think the B plots are what make it really interesting. I hesitate to go 10 out of 10.
I would say that honestly, it actually hits 10 out of 10 because of the B plots.
Okay.
I mean, the plot and the B plots are so deeply fucking intertwined that it's hard to relate any one of the plots of the movie without you can't tell one you can't tell one plot without having to go fucking knee deep in a couple others.
I should also,
and honestly, for a 2.5 hour fucking long movie, it honestly moves pretty fucking fast.
Yeah, it does.
Like there isn't a bunch of fat on it.
I should also point out that the big twist when you find out that Tom Sizemore / Max is the bad guy is very obvious in hindsight, but I was caught by surprise when I watched it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's in hindsight, and then you go back and watch it again. He literally, you hear his voice killing.
Yeah.
And also they drop the when he was a cop, he got shot in the head, and there's a 22 slug rattling around his skull.
Uh-huh.
And then about halfway through the movie, when Tick looks at the footage, he says, yeah, there's some kind of trauma there or lesion in the brain. And I mean, it's very clear, like, oh yeah, that's exactly Tom Sizemore.
Yeah.
Like, second watch, this movie is very clear what's going on, and just Lenny is stumbling around like a moron.
Yeah, Lenny's not bright. He's a lovable loser. I'm gonna go 9.5.
Okay,
I can't.
Fair.
It's just not. Saying it's 10 means it's as good plot wise as Neuromancer, which is hard for me to do at this point. It's good. It's almost as good, but I don't think it's quite good. Are you gonna go 10?
Okay. Now that honestly, it'd be tough.
I mean, it's
like,
nobody's
it's definitely
score here. I am,
except us. That's the whole point. Okay, let's go 9.75.
9.75.
Like, because I'm racking my brain, like, what other things are we gonna cover, and are there things that are better plotted than this? And I can come up with like one movie-wise, it's just...
We'll see. Maybe next week's will beat it.
Maybe. This movie is just so well made from a structural standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to argue with.
Even Roger Ebert thought so, too, when it came out. So it wasn't like critics hated it.
Yeah.
All right. Influence. This is a hard one to rate for this movie. I don't feel like it's had much influence on the world of cyberpunk, mainly because it was kind of a failure at the time.
Almost none.
Yeah.
I mean, it's down, like, and also I think the fact that it's only shooting, like at least so far as aesthetics and stuff like that, it's only looking 4 years into the future.
True. It was dated.
I mean,
it was dated a half decade after it came out.
Yeah, so...
They didn't even predict Y2K.
They didn't even predict that fucking mini discs were going to be gone by 99.
That's true. They were really banking on those mini discs. So yeah, I guess we'll drop it down. Like, I don't know anything that has called out Strange Days as an influence.
I mean,
that said, if influence works both ways, and we're talking about does it contain strong cyberpunk influences? Like there are references.
It's had a huge amount of influence on my life personally.
Yeah, me too.
On the other hand, you, me, and like 3 other people are the only people I know who've seen this movie. So
it's definitely having a comeback right now, and it'll be interesting to watch. There's like it's not a podcast I listen to, but for some reason I follow them because I think their host does other shows that I have listened to. Anyway, they're doing this week. And,
okay.
And there's tons of articles out. When I Googled it, it's just article after article since it came up on streaming, and since the plot of police violence is very fucking apropos right now.
Yeah, when I know it is one of those movies that every couple of years, you see an article where somebody goes, "Why does nobody ever talk about fucking Strange Days?" And then there will be about 5 other articles within the next month where everybody's basically saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, why does nobody talk about this? It seems like it ought to be important. And then it disappears again for 3 or 4 years, and then it happens again. It's very odd.
Also, it should be pointed out, this movie almost ruined Kathryn Bigelow's career. It has anti-influence because it almost denied us the Hurt Locker.
Well, I don't know. She's had such a strange career, and I wonder how much of it is simply because she's a woman. Like, she's not getting the immediate second chances that dudes are.
Absolutely.
Like, because immediately before this, and we didn't mention this, she made, like, one of the major hit movies of the 1990s, Point Fucking Break.
I know. A movie I wish we could cover on this.
A psychotically huge movie.
Yeah.
And then she, like, what? This is 3 years after that? I think Point Break was 92? Maybe? Mm-hmm. Maybe it was 91. And this just vanishes without a sound.
And then she doesn't make another movie for 5 years.
And then it's, what's next? Way to Water?
I don't remember.
I think.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and then she makes another one that just bobbles and is not a good movie. K-19, The Widowmaker.
Just from the title.
Yeah. It's not a good movie.
I guess the bottom line is that I'm gonna go with 4, and that's mainly on the strength of the influence it's had on me and my tastes in media, because I do feel like it's had a big influence on me.
I think that's probably a very fair and good rating. I was gonna go with 3 for the same thing, but I think 4 is a really, really the smarter way to go. Okay, 4.
All right. Now, this one I have a hard time doing anything other than 10. Dystopia / just the future world prediction. Obviously, we don't have...
this wins the predictions.
We don't have Simpsons, but we have virtual reality, which is nearing that more and more every day. And as far as the civil unrest, like it's nailed it. It almost didn't go far enough.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it would be interesting to have watched this movie 12 years ago or something.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I probably did, but...
Actually, let's go with 13 years ago, like the early days of the Obama era.
Uh-huh.
And just, imagine how this movie would have felt with, like, all the fucking racialized and police violence in it. And, like, think about then, how predictive would this movie have seemed? Been like, oh, thank God we got through all that shit. Whew.
Yeah.
Boy. But 14 years after the fact, no, we're fucking knee deep in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard. I can't not say 10.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 10, which it beats Neuromancer.
Yeah.
And then style.
I mean, hey, there are still payphones in this movie. Fuck.
Are there?
Yeah, Iris calls Lenny from one.
Well, there are still payphones in the world. There are a few of them out there.
That's true.
Um,
This movie's inclusion of payphones is less harmful than Neuromancer's exclusion of cell phones.
right. Style.
I want to give this a, 5. No, I got to go higher than 5. It's probably 6. In part, and it's going to be tough to give it points for that because, again, it's looking so near to its own time.
Yeah.
All the clothes that people were wearing were believable, except for Ralph Fiennes' outfits.
Yeah.
Which were believable, but in a horrible way. I think style-wise, the soundtrack is one of the major elements of it.
I'm actually going to go 8. I really like the style of this movie.
Okay.
I know it's a reflection of the time it was made in, but I fucking love the way they dressed Lenny. He looks so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I love it about him, and they make fun of him in the movie. Like Tom Sizemore, he's color. He said, "I didn't know you were colorblind." He says, "Yeah, it's the only way I could stand your ties."
Yeah.
I love it. Angela Bassett. Every outfit she's wearing is so fucking cool.
And would be totally wearable today or 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Her limo driver uniform is badass. Her little dress in the final scene is hot as hell.
Yeah.
She's incredible. And the rave is all style, all the weirdos in the crowd. And
oh, that's true. Yeah.
I think the movie has a lot of style, and I'm willing to go up to 8, which is actually for me is what I gave Neuromancer. So that's kind of high praise.
I'm still gonna go 6, but I'm rating it differently. I think I'm rating it differently than you, and we're allowed to have slightly different scales.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So do your math.
How do we get my calculator up?
Okay, so just broadly as a movie, if you can handle a whole bunch of triggering shit these days, I would say this is fucking 5 hand raisers out of 5. Go watch it. But don't feel bad if you don't think you can put up with a movie that is full of really viscerally upsetting shit.
Yeah, those point of view angles are rough. Sorry, I'm doing math while trying to talk.
It's okay. Yeah, in the end, it turns out this whole movie has been a triggering thing, So it's not something you can take the bad stuff out of and consider one way or the other.
I think the scene with Iris, you could just make it a murder and it wouldn't have changed the movie at all. But
that's probably true.
If the director was a man, I might have more of a problem with it, but I don't think Kathryn Bigelow's. I think she had her own reasons, and the scene is effective, so I'll trust that she had the right reasons. I
think she very specifically was saying, she wanted the audience to confront what the fuck this looks like in a, you aren't, not let the audience off the hook for it. And I think she absolutely fucking achieved that.
She did. I just don't think it would have. If the movie was being made today, I don't think it would be in there. Put it that way. And I don't think the movie would suffer for it.
I don't like. I can see why, at a script level, they wanted that in there for Lenny's motivation and for everybody to be horrified by it. Because, they talk about, and we see some other, what do they call them? Blackjacks?
Yeah. Black Beetles is what they call them in the Shadowrun world.
Yeah. And, like, in that the first scene, Lenny pulls the fucking rig off after the guy falls off the building, and he's like, I don't fucking do blackjacks. And he's just kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's somebody dying. He doesn't like it, but it's not the visceral, horrific shit that Iris being murdered is. And, like, Tick reacts the same way, and then later Max also
fakes it.
Does, but for different reasons.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I just also think that it would have been fine without it. Like, I understand why it's there. Okay. I just think it would have been fine without it.
Okay.
Anyway, I've got our totals.
Okay.
My total 7.875. Yours 7.4375.
Okay.
So mine was slightly higher.
Those numbers
this time.
mean something.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what they mean.
I'm hoping somebody in the audience will do a spreadsheet.
Yeah, maybe. Because mine was slightly lower than you on Neuromancer. Mine was slightly higher on this one. So I don't know what it means, but I'm also giving it 5 hand raisers because I love it. Even with all the triggering shit, it's still, well, not, all the brutal shit.
It was better than I remembered, or better than I expected it to be, I guess.
That's fair, because I remember it being more like Johnny Mnemonic, and it ended up it's smarter than Johnny Mnemonic by a long shot.
Oh, by a huge margin.
All right, we got to stop before we hit the 2-hour mark.
We do.
So
okay.
We thank you for coming along on this ride. If you've watched the Patreon and this, you now have almost 5 hours of Strange Days talk.
Hooray!
I think that's enough.
Yeah, that sounds right. I'm sure we'll be back to it at some point somehow.
Yeah, when Strange Days 2 gets released, summer 2023.
Strange Days 2, Strange Boogaloo.
Until then, please check us out on social media. I am at the Frog with a 0. He is Ace_Collins.
And yeah, do that. Subscribe to the Patreon, whatever. You're going to hear about that. In the outro, we need to talk about what's happening next week.
Oh, yeah, shit, we do. We've decided shortly before. I'm going to let you announce it.
Mere 1 hour and 48 minutes ago.
Yeah. You go ahead and announce this one.
We are going to watch 20 Minutes into the Future, the Max Headroom film that started it all. I mean, for a certain value of it all.
Yeah. We are saving the TV show for another time simply because we don't want to. We could just do Max Headroom in general, which has merit, and we're probably going to definitely talk about the lore of Max Headroom. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we won't ever get to the TV show, or maybe we'll save it for Patreon, or maybe we just who knows. It's hard to find. We can find the movie on YouTube is the main reason we're doing this.
Yeah, so what you'll need to do to check it out if you want to watch along, or watch it so you can be aware of it and know what we're talking about, just search for Max Headroom 20 Minutes into the Future 1985, and somebody has posted it. It's like an hour long.
Yep. On the tubes.
Yeah, it is on the YouTubes. We'll probably drop a link to it off of Twitter or something.
Yeah.
So it's an hour-long British TV movie, and we're gonna see how it goes. I've seen it once on like a fucking bootleg VHS.
Right.
25, 30 years ago.
I've definitely never seen it, but I'm hoping, I've got my fingers crossed that it's going to lighten the mood a little bit, because Strange Days was supposed to be a lot more fun than it ended up being. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I don't know. We're going to we need to have a separate list of just slightly lighter stuff that still works. I mean, my other fucking option was like, I don't know, Tank Girl?
Yeah, we could do Tank Girl,
But
Hackers.
Then it's going to turn out that like in the next week, Malcolm McDowell's going to come out as like fucking Nazi sex murderer or something.
Yeah. Well, that's always... In fact,
or Ice-T will be killed by police.
We've never talked about it, but I'm sure some of these movies we're going to watch have people who have turned out to be problematic, and I think we should still cover them.
Yeah.
But like, has Kevin Spacey ever been in a cyberpunk film? I don't know.
Not that I can think of, but I'm not. Yeah, who knows? Let's not talk about him. Jesus Christ.
All right, I was just thinking because I was thinking of
What are you trying to steer into the skid?
No, I was on Twitter this afternoon, and they said post a GIF from the best movie of the year you graduated high school. So I posted a GIF of LA Confidential, and it made me think of Kevin Spacey. And even though I love that movie, it sucks that he's tainted it now.
Yeah.
We've said his name.
Anyway, watch Max Headroom. It stars Max Frewer, a guy who I don't think is problematic.
No, not that I'm aware of. We'll find out when we do all our research. But that will be next week. And until then, goodbye.
Shit, did we come up with catchphrases for this?
Probably. I think we came up with some while we were doing the Patreon thing, but we were so drunk we forgot them.
I'm your shrink. I'm your priest.
I like the issue isn't if you're paranoid, it's are you paranoid enough? That's a pretty good one.
And paranoia is just reality on a finer scale.
These aren't going to stick. I don't want to talk about paranoia every time.
Paranoia is really just reality on a finer scale.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
This has been the High Tech Low Life podcast. Find us on Twitter at Johnny60seconds. Email us at hightechlowlifepodcast@gmail.com. And find us on Patreon at patreon.com/hightechlowlife. Theme music provided by Nia Lore at nialore.com. Thank you for listening.
Excuse me, Robo, any special message for all the kids watching at home?
Stay out of trouble.